It's Stevivor's Friendly Fire Show, episode 197 for the end of April 2022. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Wright, and with me is my friend and yours, Ben Salter. Ben, how you going? How's your fortnight been?
I'm good. I'm finally in. I know you guys had like a year of lockdown or something, but I'm finally in close contact isolation like a week before it ends. So I think that's like ending maybe in Victoria this week. So South Australia will be the week after because we just pretty much copy what everyone else does. So pretty much if this happened next week, I'd be fine. But because it happened this week, I can't do anything. All I can do is stay at home, work from home, and then play Elden Ring. And that's pretty much my life. Like there's nothing else to do.
That sounds horrible. And you're in isolation not because you're sick, but because someone in your house is sick.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like you hear so many people just like dropping like flies, and then there's other people who just like they're with each other like day in and day out, and just some people don't get COVID, which is strange. Half my hockey team.
Maybe I'm immune. I don't know.
Well, maybe. Half my hockey team said they got COVID like right after we won the grand final. And like we're supposed to go to Queensland on Monday. So I'm just like, please don't get sick. Please don't get sick. Please don't get sick. And I didn't get sick. So now I need to knock on all the things so I don't get sick between now and Monday.
We had figured that it's like inevitable. I'm going to get it anyway. So we didn't do any type of distancing or like we didn't change anything. And now it's like day 4, I think we're up to. Probably 5 actually since the rat was positive. And my rat this morning was still negative. No trace at all. First PCR was negative. I'll go do my second one tomorrow probably. And if that's clear, I think I'm clear. Like, it's not going to happen.
Well, and there's like, what, a footy game on the weekend? And that's why you're wanting to make sure you're free? Or no? Or just want to get free?
Either way, I have to stay in isolation until Monday. So this weekend, the 2 long weekends are both like written off because of this. For a virus which I don't even have.
Well, I'm of the age now, Ben, where like a long weekend where I can just hang out by myself seems like really nice, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's not lockdown or isolation because I choose it. It's not like it's mandatory.
It's definitely different to work from home when you can't then leave at all. Like you can't even take the dog for a walk. You can't do anything. Like that's the work from home perk is you can, 10 a.m. I'll go walk around the block with the dog, like get out. Like just look at a screen all day. When you lose that, it's less good. It's still not a good way to work, but it's like you're stuck here. And then when you're done, you can just go to the couch. Like you lose the perks.
So dog walks in the backyard, I guess, is all you can do?
We can just walk himself in the backyard, I guess.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
If we're not going for a walk, you can just figure it out yourself. There's the backyard sorted out.
Yeah.
At least you have a backyard to get some fresh air and...
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did all my shopping on like just the day before. Because it was a long weekend, I was like, I'll stock up. I'll do like a week's worth of shopping because all the shops are closed in Adelaide whenever there's a hint of a public holiday. And so I've got like a full case of beer. So I'm sorted for that. We've got like many dinners.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's fine.
Well, and for everything else, there's Uber Eats and grocery delivery and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, it sucks that you're in isolation. Hopefully, there's a speedy recovery. Sounds like no one's like super sick, which is nice. So hopefully a speedy exit from isolation because it doesn't seem like there's really a recovery that's even needed, which is even better. So
that's it. The good news is it's allowed me to play a lot of Elden Ring. So that's a perk of not having the commute every day. You can just 4:30 sharp, get right on there.
Tell me about it.
So for the new listener, we don't often repeat games. Like we normally kind of talk about something, maybe 2 shows in a row. Maybe we come back to it if there's a big change or something. Ordinarily, we've talked about it. We actually had special guests on. We had Hamish and Luke on to talk about it because we needed some experts because at the time, neither of us were really into FromSoft games at all.
Right.
And that is week by week or fortnight by fortnight, fortnightly show most of the time. Changing. Like you've smashed it out. You got your 1,000 gamer score. You've moved on to every other game they've made since.
Pretty much.
And I'm somewhat behind you, but when I first played it, I played it just to be able to speak about it briefly on this podcast, to be able to pretty much say, this is still not for me. I don't get it. I hate it. And the first 2 hours, I feel like that is what I felt still. Like I just didn't get it. Frustrating. For some reason, I gave it more of a chance. I think because it's got such a a hype around it, not just from the game community, like it's mainstream now. Like everyone's talking about Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Played it some more. I'm now about to hit 30 hours. And I'm like fully into like I've respected my character. I was actually messaging you about that last night to be like, just in case you were going to say that's dumb, don't do that.
No, I just felt bad because
And
I'm so far out of the meta now. Like I used to like bleed build was good and like all these things. You missed the time of the Hoarfrost Stomp entirely. Let me tell you, the Hoarfrost Stomp was amazing at the beginning. Anyway, I digress. Continue.
yeah, well, so I've changed. I was very much just putting my stats into like a bit of everything, which is a bad way to play. And so I was still using like an early sword, which I'd leveled up to get past Renella, who lets you eventually respec if you like. And that's when I thought maybe I should look at other stuff. And I ended up getting the Moonveil Katana, which is banging,
Yeah.
but it requires you to be like dexterity / intelligence. And that's the path I'm going down now. So I think that's a pretty common build, it seems, because of that specific weapon. But I think that's more me, because I was realizing I wasn't using the shield at all. So the sword shield was kind of a waste because I was basically just ignoring one hand or using it as a two-handed weapon occasionally. And I think I need speed. I'm all about get in, quick hits, back out, and ideally have a ranged option. So it's taken me like 25 plus hours, but I finally have some level of strategy instead of just like hope, die, and eventually get the win. I now have something of a plan. Not a great plan, but it seems to be working.
But I think that's kind of like you learn because you like it's what I was saying the other episode about there's no map and there's no markers, but because you have to learn everything really as you go, like you know the areas, and once you get back to an area you're like, oh yeah, okay, because like you have to. If you don't dedicate that to memory or learn how something works, it just you're never going to succeed. So like there's this weird bit of game that we don't usually partake in, that so you know more about all of these stats even though FromSoft isn't really like explaining them to you. Like you sort of get it. Like if you want to run a katana, you could do like a Rivers of Blood katana build, or you can do the Moonveil katana. Like you sort of kind of start to know like, okay, well, things in strength is useless, like that needs to be in dexterity instead, which is like really neat. And it like transitions. Like I think Elden Ring is probably like the accessible FromSoft greatest hits, but we'll get to my experience in a second. It's just it's really neat that like you seem to be having the same kind of experience that my husband Matt is having. Like, oh yeah, I'll get into it, and it's more frustrating than fun for the first little while, and then either things start clicking and you just start liking it, or it just becomes like Stockholm syndrome. And like, do you know if it's one or the other, or like a combination of both right now?
I think it's both. I think it's that it is actually very Breath of the Wildy. Like it's super similar in that you need to figure out where to go yourself. You can ignore a bunch of it if you want, but to your own detriment because you're not getting the loot you need essentially. I think it does, like you say, it's the most accessible FromSoft game, and it probably is, but it's still really not accessible at all. Like it doesn't tell you anything. I only just realized today that I've like that potion, the flask thing that you can mix yourself. I've never used because I don't know how to use it, and I realized I should probably Google that. And it's very much it's just one of the things that like it doesn't really tell you, so then you just forget that you even got that and you don't use it. Like there's so much stuff in my inventory that I'm just like, whatever's there.
What about great runes and the half moon rune things? Like you keep the great runes and you don't have them applied until you use the half rune consumable.
Yeah, so I learned that from YouTube. I use the one that gives you like a +5, the one from Godric on. So I got Renella down to, in her second stage, no health, like 4K TV. I'm telling you, that bar was empty. And I had no health left either. And then I missed and she hit me and I was dead. And so that was like a almost controller through the OLED situation, but it didn't happen. And then I was just off. You know, when you're off and you're like, I could never get anywhere near that again.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I remembered that I had that rune and that little arc thing, used it, easily won. Like just the extra stats boost once I knew what was going to go on in the boss fight. So definitely useful at the right time.
Are you summoning like real people? Yeah. That's helpful.
That fight didn't have real people, but the two before did. And yeah, it's
like the ones NPC real people or real people, because you can always get real people.
NPC real people. Anyway, Doesn't matter. That one,
Okay.
the wolves work really well in that one.
Yeah.
It's the terminology is confusing because a lot of things are very similar, and even remembering what it all means is
Yeah.
challenging
Well,
somewhat.
so there's summon symbols on the ground, and like for Margit, there's one like
Yeah.
right near the gate. Like that's an NPC character that will help you. But and I kind of taught Matt this, and I think you should probably look into it because there's pros and cons if you summon real world players to help you. So you can summon
Oh, real players. Never done that.
but you can summon 2 people. The more like for one person that you summon, the boss gets like a little bit more resilience or more health. Like it's same idea. Like it takes more to kill them, but because there's 2 of you. And the same thing, like there's extra for 2 real player characters. I'm not sure if it scales the same way with like the NPC summons or not. But like Renala, there's like if you go and Google cheese, there's a lot of cheeses to some of these bosses, and I admit to fully using these cheeses when I need to. But Renala was one of those ones where I wouldn't get hit in the first phase at all, and then the second phase I'd get like super close, and like half the bosses I killed at the same time they killed me, and I'm like, I'll take it, I don't even care. But I couldn't get her, and I just ended up summoning 2 real people. And they just like laid waste to her, and I kind of like hung back in the corner, like lobbing like some spells, and I don't feel bad about doing that kind of thing. You have to get used to doing it. There's all these different fingers. It's a specific finger that you have to activate, and that allows people to join your game, and they have to do a summoning finger, or not a summoning finger, or they have to use a finger as well, which will put down those yellow summon squares. So with Renala, before you go into like the library, you can like activate your finger thing, and then you'll see all the markers on the ground, and you just have to kind of like activate them and hope that someone's not grabbed them before you do. It's like it's nice because you can get help, and there's limited things you can like communicate to people. So I guess the expectation is kind of like go and run a boss a bunch of times to sort of get an idea of what's going on. Summon people. They can't like it's unless you like join a Discord or something with them, they can't like berate you if you're bad or something. But even that said, like I was stuck kind of near the end, and this guy just kept like he messaged me on Xbox. He's like, "Don't give up. Like just keep summoning me. I'll keep helping you. Try this." And it's like it's just the nicest thing. Like it either works or it doesn't. People are doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. They've generally already beaten that boss or like beaten the game, and they're just like back trying to help people. So that is my tip to you. Give it a try. It's not like normal multiplayer in a game. Like you don't interact with the people really. You just have to fight with one another. I'll figure out which thing it is to work for you if you don't.
Yeah, I'll try. It sounds horrible as a player. I would hate to do that once I've beaten a game to go back and keep playing the bosses. But good on those people for enjoying that.
I've helped Matt with a couple bosses. I could do exactly the same with you. So, and you can make it easy to connect with your friends by putting in passwords, so you only access the people with the same password and stuff. So, I helped Matt a couple times, and I'm like that invitation is obviously extended to you. I'm OP in my own New Game Plus game, but. The cat in the background, sorry. But when you join someone else's game, like they nerf you basically, so you can't just go in and like destroy a boss for your friend and then leave. So it's still challenging.
Okay. Well, I would definitely say this game would be very hard to play 20 years ago. Like I Googled so much stuff, which I rarely do for any game. Normally I just figure it out. But it's such a long game, and there's so much going on that I'm just like, I need a smithing or like smithing stone 5, Google where is 1, because I do not have time just to wander the world and hope. And just how stuff works. Like it's constant Googling, is this weapon I found good or not? Like stuff like that. And there's heaps of it all over the internet. I've rarely watched any gaming YouTubers, but I've watched so many on Elden Ring just to see how to do something. I've got some tips for them. Tip number 1, short video is much better. I don't need your half an hour story on what you did first. Just
can't monetize them though that way. That's why. Anyway.
Show the map very clearly at the start. This is where you go. Like some of them are rubbish at that. If you're going to do your voiceover, just talk about what you're doing. No backstory, no like I've won, whatever. Just like explain what's going on. If you're not going to do the talking over it and you're going to use text on the video, all good, but make it very clear what it is straight away, because I'm not reading the whole thing through the whole time.
Yeah.
And if I see someone sitting in the corner in their chair, they put themselves in the video, instant stop watching because I know it's going to be awful. So that's pretty much my tips as a viewer.
I like the way you think. Tyrannicon. If you Google Elden Ring Guru and like name of boss, like some cheesy ones, some like helpful ones, and like it's all straight to the point and super useful. Like just he's and like I found he does videos on Sekiro. I have no idea how to say it. And like there's some Dark Souls ones that I've checked out. Like it's just like try this, do this. If you're really stuck, like do this weird thing to like get up to this area where they can't hit you and just throw fireballs. Like, yep, done. Fireball. Yeah, anyway. I have no problems beating any of these games with like a little bit of a cheat if I'm stuck. I like trying it though. Like even though I know what I can do to like I will try it earnestly to get to where I did.
I haven't used that for many bosses because I find because how you play is so different. Someone else shows you in like their class and their build is unlike yours at all, and it's not very useful. Bosses I find easier, just it's that repetition of you need to learn what their moves are. Occasionally there's like how do I dodge this move, which just keeps destroying me, and it's like, oh, you've got to roll forward to the right, forward to the left is instant death, and it's like, ugh. But yeah, that type of stuff.
When I was playing Elden Ring, there were less YouTube. God, it's not like I'm 50 years old. When I was playing Elden Ring back in 1952,
you need the print guide.
But there, I was using because there weren't a lot of YouTube videos, or like because patch 1.03 came out, and that was the Hoarfrost Stomp nerf, and like every guide was just like stomp them. I'm like, I can't. I've tried that. It's like it doesn't hurt them anymore. So I was reading like text-based guides, and like half of them, or even videos, were just like. So get to this boss and don't get hit and hit them. Like, oh, wow. Like, what a revelation. I didn't know that's how I beat someone in a game about combat. Thank you so much. Like, yeah, like you need, like, he'll lift his right arm high in the air, and that means this is going to happen. And when this happens, you should be, like, backing up and dodging to the right or something. Like, you need to be very specific, I think, if you want to try to help people with Elden Ring. Like, I think I know a lot, and I'll happily help Matt when he's playing downstairs, and I'll give you some tips, but I still don't feel confident enough to try, even like for beginners, to try to like articulate this like via the website or on YouTube or like via the podcast. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it's still I'm okay, I'm dangerous, but like it's a bit still beyond me, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think that's how a lot of people are playing it. You know, we're both new to these type of games because the other ones were just that little bit more inaccessible, so they were hard to jump into. And so, like, there's a large group of people I know playing this who only play a couple of games a year. Like, and this is one of them because of the hype, because there's a little out at the moment. So they jumped on it. Like my future brother-in-law is playing it. He only plays a couple of PS5 games a year. Did not pick him at all to be playing it.
Wasn't he playing it in lockdown, in isolation too?
Yeah, he actually had COVID. And that's why he got it, because he needed this was like the new release that was getting 10s at the time. So it's like, oh, I'll just get it. And so like you ask him like, what type of build are you playing? It's like, I've got no idea. Like I've just like strength and vigor, like health and like big sword whacking things. Like that's my whole strategy. That's all I'm doing. Not interested in learning about magic. I don't get it. It's too complicated. I just want to go whack stuff basically. And that does work. It's a strategy. But like, so there's different tiers of like, you know, you were talking like someone who's finished the game, like, you know, some of the intricacies, but if you play it again, you'll probably find a bunch more. But I think there's a lot of players like that too, who are just not interested. It's too deep. It's too much going on. They've got their little bit of strategy and that's what they're putting all their stats into. And that will probably work long term if you commit long enough. And there's just two massive spectrums of players, people who know what FromSoft are going to do and people like us who are trying to learn it along the way.
Yeah. Well, and the world is so big. There's like, even if you're not like excelling at destroying all the bosses and, you know, like progressing the real story, like I couldn't beat Margit at the start for a while. So I found a way around the castle and like into other areas. And I'm just like, ooh, okay. Got on my horse and like found like Fireland with like giant T-Rex dogs or whatever they are, and just like terrified, and they would one hit me. But it was just like this cool thing of like you can turn a corner and you can find something new at all times. Matt's in near like he's in like the main huge city, Lindale or something like that. And he was like, what do I do here? I'm like, and I looked at the screen, I'm like, I don't think I was ever where you are. Like I know where you are, like on the map generally, but I have no idea where that specific thing is. So like, I don't know, you're on your own. Sorry about that. There's just so many. It's a huge world, but it's not like an Ubisoft huge world with just like hills and trees and nothing. Like everything is kind of like placed in a very specific way, and then you turn a corner and magically find a cave, and you go into the cave thinking it's going to be a little thing, and it's just like this giant labyrinth with like boulders rolling and crushing you and like spikes and poison. It's really fun just to explore sometimes, and you're like, you always feel, even if you're dying and losing like thousands of souls, you're still feeling like you're progressing, which I think is very enjoyable. And because it's open world, it's less of like a linear path. You have to do A and then B and then C. Like if you're feeling stuck at something, a lot of the time I just went, okay, just going to put a pin in that. I'm either going to go get some souls, or I'm going to go look over in the other direction because I can't be bothered anymore. And there's something to do, even if it's not, the quest that you were hoping to complete. And then, you get more power, you get a cool weapon or something, you find a cool talisman, and then, you're more prepared to do the thing that you intended to do.
Yeah, I think that's why I've ultimately gotten into it eventually. It's the almost any game that's forcing me onto side quests, or like I feel like I'm not progressing, I just drop and I lose interest. Like I want to be moving forward in the main quest. And this is a very rare example where I don't mind that I'm not doing that. And if I get stuck on something, I'm happy to leave it and come back to it. I think that putting a pin in it and coming back to it is a very important part, because in most games that's really frustrating. But for some reason you kind of accept it and you're like, all right, I shouldn't be here yet, or I'm not quite good enough. I'm going to go totally other side of the map and do something else for a little while. And in a way, you're not making any progress because of how the leveling works with runes, which you might use on something else. You can kill a bunch of stuff and then spend that on loot, so you actually don't level up at all, which is rare for an RPG.
Yep.
And then, so you can kind of not make any progress, but you kind of do, because you get that experience, you're playing better, you might get one useful item that ultimately helps you. And that's what I normally don't get from these games. I normally lose interest. I normally want to speed it up a bit, but I'm enjoying that. Even some of it's super grindy. Like, I need a bunch of runes. I just need to grind for ages to get some. I normally hate that, but for some reason I don't here. I hit the wall. I always hit a point where I'm like, that's it for today. Like, I can't do any more. But then I'm back happy again the next day, carrying on. So like,
when you hit the wall though, because Matt, I was doing it and Matt was like rolling his eyes at me like, what are you talking about? I don't care. But then he started playing Elden Ring more, and you hit the wall, and then like you're watching TV 2 hours later and you just go, oh, if I use this katana instead and switch out to this shield, and I came from the right angle and, like had a spell to do that, like it's kind of always like churning in the back of your brain. Like it's this weird itch that just always needs to be scratched. Does that happen to you too? Or am I just like OCD with these games?
No, I would think so, because often, like, probably after this, I'd be like, oh, I've got to go make dinner. I'm good to have a break from it. Maybe I'll even skip tonight playing. But then I bet you I'll get back to it, because I'll be like, you know what? My Moon Veil could use a couple more stones. Like, it wouldn't be too hard. I can Google some locations. I can find some. I can do a bit of mapping, unlock some of the fog, which annoys me.
Do you
there's
know
always
about
like
the bell things that you go to the round table and give to the creepy looking things, so you can just buy smithing stones?
I've got some bells, but I need the somber smithing stones for the Moon Veil.
Yeah.
Because it's a special boy.
Same things. You can get bell bearings for those too. But
you also only need one of every level, so I kind of feel like it's easier just to find one at this point.
But then if you have the bell bearings, then it's just really easy, because I think you get to a certain point where you're pretty happy with your stats, and then like if a patch comes out, like what happened to me a couple times, and it like completely nerfs the build you have, and like well no, but like if you get these bell bearings and the Moon Veil katana, hopefully not, knock on wood, becomes obsolete. If you have all the bell bearings, it's just a matter of like doing a couple farming runs, buying all the smithing stones you need, getting whatever the new hot weapon is, and just like pumping all the stones back into it. Like that's kind of, it's not end game, but it kind of is.
Good example of like, I'll probably go waste 2 hours just getting a bunch of those and like making no progress really, but doing something that does help you long term. And I'll probably get better since this is the new class for me. I'm actually doing the double katana, one in each hand. That's the way to go. Then you get like bleed and frost damage.
That's what I was doing, just pure blood though. Anyway.
So yeah, it's it's a funner way to play for me. Speed's the way to go. We could talk about Elden Ring for hours, but we need to move it along.
We could.
And I feel like the next step, which this is not going to happen for me because I've already put in 30 hours. How much longer do you think I have to go? At least another 30, probably more.
Yeah, I think I was about 60, I think.
Yeah.
Or
I guess
so.
it can be. It's a hard question to answer because you can smash through as quickly as possible, or I could go explore everywhere, which I won't do. But I have been exploring optional areas and enjoying that. So,
well, I did get all the achievements, but like I didn't hunt them down. Well, I did at the end, obviously, but like I had more fun going and like fighting all the little bosses that didn't matter whatsoever to anything I was doing because it was like really fun. And that's the good thing about the grind as well. It's not like a mash X to win type of game, like to get the souls. Like you have to be strategic and parry and block or like get range and hit. So like it's not like a combat encounter is kind of just like boring. Like they're all engaging, which to me makes it more fun. Like I was grinding for souls in Dark Souls because this is the segue, and I just found a spot where there's just like a whole bunch of enemies that were like sort of hard to kill, but if you killed them, you got like 2,000 souls per kill. So it was like this exercise of like parrying and blocking and dodging and like it was kind of the grind. It was the definition of grind. I was just doing the same thing over and over and over. Bonfire fights. But none of the fights were ever the same. And I had to like really use my brain to beat these people. And that's what's fun. So you were alluding to the fact that I've been playing a whole bunch of From Software games. I've tried Sorry.
So you've done the opposite of everyone else. You've started on Elden Ring and actually gone backwards. I think so. I was about to say that I don't think I'll do that because it's too much time in one game, and I kind of want to just leave on a high. Hopefully, I'm still enjoying it. 30 more hours time. But you've got fully hooked, so you're going backwards into the back catalog. Are you dabbling in each one, or are you committing to one at a time to play through?
Well, so I started dabbling in Bloodborne because I knew I owned that on PlayStation.
7.5 out of 10.
Reviewed it on PS4.
Do you agree with that score now that you've become turned onto the From side?
I do, because I literally played for 8 hours and couldn't get past the first probably half hour point. Because I very much understand how a From Software game has to be played now, and like I couldn't. I didn't Google anything because it was ahead of release and stuff. Like I was my own resource, and that's not to say it's bad. It's just like it's inaccessible.
It's cool
if you're not used to it, and it's still a good score. If you like it, you're still gonna like it. It's very different. So you have like a gun in your left hand, which is sort of your shield, but it's meant to like if someone's attacking you, you have to shoot someone to try to like interrupt the attack. So you can't block it. You have to get your timing right and interrupt the attack, and then your right hand is just like hitty. It's good. I'm playing all of these games years after they've been released, and I'm certainly using guides. Like, go here, do this, avoid this for now because you're not gonna be ready for this. Like, you'll get one hit, and I'm liking it. I thought I liked Bloodborne more than Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, which is what From Software did for Activision. It's their most recent game apart from Elden Ring, but it's completely different. So, like, with Elden Ring, you can shield, spell, melee, that's... The world is your oyster. Bloodborne is gun, weapon. So the combat's a little bit different. Sekiro, but you can still customize different builds and stuff and put points to things, and it's Elden Ringy in that way with how you spec your character. Sekiro is just like, you are this samurai. He has these things. Go. Like, they've made the build and you just have to get used to it. So it's very much about like perfection in combat. You have to get your timings right. You have to do this, you have to do that. I think I'm enjoying Sekiro more than Bloodborne, just because you have to kind of get used to a certain way of playing, and then like it's not like you have to shift and try something new because that's not working. Like it has to work the way that they've set it up. And I think From Software is able to make a game that challenges that specific build of the character, whereas the other ones are a little bit more open because you can do so many different things. Does that make sense what I'm trying to get at? Like,
It does.
you are this
So-
character, so they are making all these enemies, and they like that's how they meet.
Well, and I imagine the biggest difference in those and the Souls games is that it's a more linear experience. Like they're funneling you along to get to this point at this stage. as
Sekiro
opposed to-
certainly. Sorry.
Yeah. So, well, as opposed to you go and you do what you want, and if you're struggling in an area in Elden Ring, you go elsewhere, and that's kind of what they want you to do. This is, I assume, more. No, this is where you should be. This is what you need to do next.
Yeah, Bloodborne, you can kind of like get into certain areas early, but like you don't want to. You kind of want to go in a certain path, I'd say. I started Bloodborne, kind of like started playing Bloodborne and Sekiro, whatever, however you say it. Started playing Sekiro more, and then realized I had the 360 version of Dark Souls, and went, oh, I want to see what this is like.
Retro.
And it's very much more Elden Ring style, but like years ago. But like it's the stat points. You can use spells, you can use pyromancy, you can perform miracles and heal yourself, and you have shields and weapons. You can't jump. That's like the biggest difference, obviously. Elden Ring is like the first you can jump game. But it's very...
It took me 20 hours to realize your horse can double jump. Like, I've only quite recently realized this. They never tell you.
No,
if they do, I
they
skip
don't tell you anything. But in like Dark Souls,
why can it double jump? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Because it's a ghost horse.
It's a magic horse.
That's why. Because it's you can summon it out of thin air with a ring. Of course, it can double jump. Ben, why are you even asking? Why are you?
I don't know. Well, your guy is such a shitty jump. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The horse is a good jumper.
Well, my guy in Dark Souls is the worst jumper. He can jump, but you have to run and hit like dodge once to kind of jump over a thing. Like that's the most jumping he can do. It's very Elden Ring, but there's a whole bunch of extra mechanics that I hate, kind of thing. Like there's weapon damage and degradation. You're dead, so like you're a zombie, but you're not like a bad zombie, and you have to use humanity to bring yourself back to life to be a human, which opens up like summoning options and brings invaders, like NPC invaders, into your world and stuff. And you have to be a human to kindle a bonfire to get more like flask uses of like health. When like there's all these just things, and it's just like sometimes it's like too much to manage. But as much as I like Sekiro, I've found myself kind of just like only playing Dark Souls now, and I'm really, really liking it. I think I'm about 20 hours in this Dark Souls run, and like just fully using a guide. I do not care. Like, tell me where to go, tell me what to not do right now. It's just super fun, and I feel like it's easier than I think people playing it at the time would have felt, because I'm so used to kind of playing these things now. Well, yeah, and I also have a guide, but it's just really fun. I think probably Dark Souls is people's least favorite. I think Dark Souls probably 2, I've heard,
Dark Souls
is the
2
best.
is the one that Oh, really? See, I see a lot of people hating on Dark Souls 2.
Maybe
They're
3
like
then?
1 and 3.
I don't know.
But that could be... Everyone has their own opinion on these things, so that could just be the one guy I saw say that.
Well, but I think... I can't remember if I had Dark Souls in back compat or if I bought it because it was cheap, but I do remember looking at like all the From Software games, and they're like full price. So Bandai Namco is going like, we can get this out of you people now that you've got.
I'll go and sell at some point. Okay.
Well, yeah. So like I'll probably when I finish Dark Souls, I don't know if I'm like that keen to go back into Sekiro or Bloodborne necessarily. I'd probably want to play Dark Souls 2 and 3 because it's more of that Elden Ring style. But they're all really good, and I'm like, I don't know if 4 years ago I would have necessarily been as patient or as in search of a different kind of experience to enjoy these as much as I do now. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, so I was going to ask, which one would you recommend people who have just come to From Software and loved Elden Ring, but it sounds like you're suggesting Dark Souls is the way to go.
I think so.
Maybe, I mean, without having played any of them, maybe Dark Souls 3, just as the newest one, might be easier to get your hands on. It might be a little bit slightly upgraded because it's for the current gen. What was Dark Souls 2 on? Was that 360 or was that not current gen?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. There's it's remastered on PC, and like from some of the guides that I've been looking at, like it looks way nicer than the 360 one. But like, to be
Remastered
fair,
on console.
Elden Ring doesn't look great either.
No.
It's
a very
pretty.
clunky game.
Yeah, but like, so Dark Souls, it's got like the weird like Resident Evil 4 like do 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 do. I don't know, like just kind of like lame music, and water just looks like black and white lines kind of like going downwards kind of thing if it's a waterfall. Like it doesn't look good, but it doesn't look bad. And
No.
it's just kind of more From Software stuff. So I'm sure like 2 and 3 look better, but Dark Souls, whatever version, they've probably done something to it on back and pat for 360 on Xbox, but it's good. I like it.
There's Dark Souls remastered on Xbox One, I'm pretty sure. So that's probably the go.
Oh,
Pretty sure that exists.
I don't know. I'll look in a
Could be
second,
wrong.
but
Anyway, I think like Dark Souls remastered is on Switch, so it can't be that demanding.
Mm.
And it's super old, so that'd be why. Yeah, well, I think pretty much to wrap up your point, I think a few years ago it would be very hard to, if you weren't into these games, hard to get into them, but the potentially unintended consequence of Elden Ring being that little bit more accessible, getting the tens and the massive praise across the board, which probably got people into it who otherwise would have ignored it, and probably who have never played a Souls, never even heard of a Souls game. And if they did stick with it like you and I did, they probably got more into it, and then have the inclination to go back to a previous game, and where it would have just been frustrating before because you don't have that, go do something else for ages element that an open world has. But because they know how to play it now, maybe you stick with it longer. Maybe you find it a bit easier because you understand what you should be doing. And so potentially they've made the past games slightly more accessible to the people who have put in 100 hours into Elden Ring, because it kind of teaches you what to do.
Go try one. Try Elden Ring. I think it's probably the nicest experience. And if you're digging the vibe, a lot of the From Software games are very similar in vibe. So it's kind of like Bloodborne's more like if you like steampunk, Sekiro's more if you like the samurai thing, and then Dark Souls to me is like I just want more exactly Elden Ring but older. Like I want to see how Elden Ring came to be kind of thing. So I think that's it. I think From Software is trying to do different things, but Elden Ring's almost just like we're going to make it Dark Souls open world but not call it Dark Souls. I think even Luke said that. I think I stole that from Luke.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I mean, they pump out so many games. It's actually quite amazing how many they really like. Sekiro wasn't that long ago. Bloodborne wasn't that long before it. If you consider how long these open worlds normally take, like Cyberpunk came out 7 years or something after Witcher 3, and their next game will probably be 10 years late, 10 years after that. So it's actually quite impressive how quickly they do this. And if you look at their history, they were pumping out like their previous franchises like twice a year or something.
Yeah.
And they did like what was their kids game they did for DS? It was something weird like what's the Japanese cat thing? My Little Kitty.
Hello
something
Kitty?
Like that. Hello Kitty, that's it. My Little Pony I've mixed up with Hello Kitty.
My Little Kitty.
Yeah, they made something like that. I only saw that in like a spam clickbait like headline of like, you'd never believe that From Software did this, and that was like the first one. I'm like,
Well,
okay.
Hello
Good on
Kitty
them.
was killing people for their souls and then was banking them for upgrades. It seems pretty similar.
That might not be a fact, not a facts-based show. I can't quite remember the details or even the franchise name, but something like that is
There you
the
go.
fact.
Well, I'm using the segue from what you've just said. We're going straight to news. You talked about CD Projekt Red taking a lot of time to do stuff. They're going to take some more time to do some more stuff. They've taken back development of the current gen versions of The Witcher 3, I think from Saber Interactive, if I'm not a fact-based show, so who cares if I'm correct. That has an indefinite hold while they're sorting that out. So if you wanted to play current gen versions of The Witcher 3 on Xbox Series and PlayStation 5, you gotta wait some time. Also, Cyberpunk 2077 DLC is on the cards, but not coming out until 2023. So CD Projekt Red's just taking their time.
We don't need that. Witcher 3, so this is taking this week in delays, or this fortnight in delays, to a whole new level because they've indefinitely delayed a game which came out 7 years ago. Has been delayed. Anyway, good on them. Like, I'm pretty sure it runs quite well on the current gen consoles because it gets the frame rate up to where it should be in a stabler way at least. So just play them as they are. I don't think it will make a drastic difference. I'm one of those people who waited for Cyberpunk to finally get its current gen update, which has now happened, and because of Elden Ring, I haven't played it, and now I may never play it. So,
Oh, you
point of
should.
my story,
It's really good.
I will get there, but I need something after like this 60 to 70 hour slog. I need like a short little
Okay.
game in between.
Don't play Cyberpunk in that case.
But
It's a time
is the
sink,
thing.
but a good time sink.
It's going to keep getting delayed. But fortunately, there are like no more releases for the rest of the year currently really locked in. There's a couple that we're about to talk about, but there's not a lot that's definite for the rest of this year. I suspect more delays will happen, so maybe I'll slot it in. But my point being, if you want to play Witcher 3 and you haven't played it, don't wait 5 years for the current gen upgrade. Like, just play the last gen version. It's like $8 or something probably. So it's still a good game. It plays well on the current consoles.
Absolutely. You mentioned this week or this fortnight in delays. We don't have any delays because, like, literally, there's nothing left. We had all the releases. There's nothing coming. Nothing's been delayed apart from, I guess, The Witcher 3, which is already out. Randomly, though, Nintendo's not delayed Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but they've moved its release date ahead. I think it was originally supposed to be out in September. Not a fact-based show, but it's certainly out now in July. I think late July, from what I recall.
July or June, one of the J months. Maybe it was July. This is the biggest scandal to come to this fortnight in delays since we started this show. That's our only regular segment, and we've had the first time ever a relay,
an anti-delay, an
release
opposite delay.
What's before? It's like the prequel to release. I don't know. It's totally screwed up our system because we've never had this before. We've never had like a locked-in release date move forward a few months. Probably goes to show you that Nintendo games or Nintendo published games are done well ahead of time. They slot them in quite strategically. There's often a game. There's almost one every month from Nintendo, but some of them are smaller releases you kind of miss.
Well, and it's weird because Advance Wars 1 and 2 whatever it's called was
Reboot Camp.
It's totally ready to be released, but they've delayed it in the wake of the Ukraine Russia war. But so Nintendo's happy to push that down the schedule, but like Xenoblade Chronicles, which is still, I guess it's about combat but not military combat. They're just like, we'll put that ahead.
Well, Advance Wars is actually about like two factions invading, and I think there's some maybe like it's basically like army men fighting each other essentially. Like it's very cartoony. I think there's probably some element of one of them is Russia because in every war game there's like, oh, that's the Russians. Like
it's the Soviets or the Chinese. Yeah.
So I think that had something to do with it. Whether Xenoblade is totally fictional, fantasy world. And I think that's the reason why this has been moved up. So like it probably shows that a bunch of Nintendo's games for this year, well, not a bunch, the couple that we knew which had release dates and are definitely coming this year are ready. And so they've moved that up to July, which frees up September, which is probably where they're trying to plug in Advance Wars. I think they've probably penciled it in, assuming that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is somewhat more acceptable in terms of society and how we view that to release a game. It's like a G-rated war. Like it's not like it's a full-on simulation. So I think they'll hope they can release that then.
That's just literally made me remember something I've played that I didn't talk about in what we've been playing. I had a chance to... Did I talk about this last time? No, I can't remember. I previewed Nintendo Switch Sports. Have I talked about it? I can't remember.
No, you haven't.
It's super good. 6 sports, I think. Tennis, badminton, kind of dumb because they're basically the same sort of thing. Tennis is more strategic and badminton's just swing and hit the thing. Just like make sure you can hit it. Soccer is weird, and it's one of those releases that's going to be not like it's half and half right now. Like you can use the leg strap to kick in shootout mode, but you can't use it for anything else. But eventually you'll be able to use the leg strap for every soccer mode. And soccer mode, basically when it's not shootout, feels like Rocket League. Giant ball, run around, use one Joy-Con to move, the other Joy-Con to kick.
Sounds
swinging around.
Real soccer, yeah.
Really fun. Bowling is Wii Bowling. It's Wii Sports Bowling, but the big change, I guess. Sorry. Oh, good. The big change is that it's not like one at a time. So if you have multiple people and 4 players, you can all grab a Joy-Con at the same time and, space yourself out so you're not smacking someone in the face. And you'll just get like a split screen and you can all just bowl at the same time, like for interest of time consuming or time saving. Volleyball is probably, if you have kids, the hardest to learn, 'cause it's very dependent on timing and like motions and getting everything like completely right. And then there's Chambara, which is hitting people with swords. And there's a lot of like For Honor style kind of like match, counter match, like strikes. But like you probably could just, swing with reckless abandon and see how you go. Did I get all the sports? I can't remember. Yes, I think so.
It
It's good. It's
sounds.
fun.
I mean, I think it's been long enough since Wii Sports that people would get back into them again because like they've had a gap. The good ones then were tennis. People loved, but I think bowling was probably the best in terms of how it worked. Like tennis still had a lot of luck to it, whereas bowling you could kind of actually figure out what to do, and you could have quite close matches because you'd have other people who are good too. So I think playing at the same time makes sense. Sounds good.
And yeah, if you like Wii Sports, if you played Wii Sports, like we all brought people over to our house to show them how the Wii worked with Wii Sports, like guaranteed. Like here's bowling. So it's that kind of just really stupid fun. There's an online component that I didn't get to try out. It seems like more of a people over at your house post-pandemic, get to catch up, sink some beers and play some bowling. So it's good. I'm sure Nintendo doesn't want that to be the marketing campaign. Sink some beers and play some bowling, but that's
the big difference obviously is Wii Sports was a free pack-in launch title. This is coming out like almost towards the end of the Switch's life, and it costs $60 or something.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what people do. If they think this is just Wii Sports again, I've still got a Wii, why would I buy this? Not that Nintendo give things away for free, but potentially they could have just added it to like Switch Online or something as like they may still do that. You never know.
Yeah.
In a few months. I just think it will get less take up because of that.
Yeah. Golf is also coming. I remember having a good time with golf. Golf's not going to be out at launch. It's coming later. I think a review goes up sometime next week, so stay tuned for that. Back to news. My apologies. We'll stay on the Nintendo front, I guess. It's more than Nintendo, though. Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft have reached agreements with essentially the UK's ACCC. I forget what it's called. The CMA, Competition and Market Authority. That's maybe not right. Fact-based show. We are not. Essentially, they're all done in slightly different ways, but if you're not using a Nintendo Switch Online or a PlayStation Plus or an Xbox Live or Game Pass subscription, eventually you will no longer be paying for it because those subscriptions will lapse and you won't be auto-renewed, and you won't, just have this money keep coming out of your account if you've forgotten to cancel any of those subscriptions, which I think is great. I think it should be a thing that's kind of like global, and I think it's a thing that shouldn't be necessarily needed to be enforced by each federal government in the world on these corporations. It's just like if you're not using the subscription, you shouldn't be able to, take the money off me. Giant mega corporation, Netflix or gaming company or Paramount or whomever we're talking about. It's a win, right?
They're all very sneaky with when you sign up for anything, auto renew is often checked by default, and I feel like it should just be that's automatically unchecked, and you need to make the effort to say, I want that.
And the next thing for this mentality is for gyms to also realize you've not been going for like 2 months and just cancel your subscription. real life application.
I would say my current gym membership is probably hitting like, what are they, like $12 or $13 a week? But per visit, I'm probably up to about $150 a visit, I would say, in the last 12 months. Like, it's not been strong. I need to go in. They let you sign up online, but you have to go into that same one you sign up to, which is nowhere near my current house. It's not the one I very occasionally use. It's so annoying, so I don't do it. But I need to go in and cancel because they've annoyed me.
Matt struggled with his commercial gym and canceling during the pandemic, but thankfully, I go to gym at Monash, where the day job is, and they just canceled subscriptions without even like asking people. They're like, "You're not coming in. We're just getting rid of it." So good on you, Monash Sport. Kingdom Hearts 4. Nothing's delayed, but we have a new announcement of the next numbered sequel in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. It's a new trilogy, I would assume. It's a new saga, if nothing else. So not directly, I guess sort of following the events of Kingdom Hearts 3, of course. Not that I could tell you what happened across any of the Kingdom Hearts games anymore. But it's kind of notable because it's taking a realistic look. It looks like it's in the real world, and Sora looks more like a human than a Square Enix version of a human also living in a Disney world. What's your thoughts on Kingdom Hearts before we get into any of this, Ben?
I tried to play like maybe the PS2 ones, and I just thought this is dumb. And yeah, I've just never got into it. Not for me. But that's what I used to say about the Souls games, and I thought From Software games were all terrible, and now it's clearly my game of the year. Oh, that's what we didn't talk about. One, not to go back on the same game constantly and forget about
Everything
Kingdom
is
Hearts.
Elden Ring. It's fine.
Everything's Elden Ring. People are talking about it being game of the year. My question to you is: it's so rare that a February game wins game of the year, because we normally forget. They get moved on. You forget to even bring them into consideration. Like a few years ago, I don't think Hitman 3 was game of the year, but I think it should have been in the conversation. And
Yeah,
it was
because
not
it was
even
January.
Because it was January. And so there seems to be there's definitely a recency bias, and that you need to be extra good to win game of the year from the first quarter, probably the first half of the year. Actually, anywhere outside the holiday release, really, because people just forget. And so, do you think, one, is anything even going to challenge Elden Ring? And two, is it that good and has it been talked about enough? That's probably the big difference. A lot of games don't get talked about to this degree, that it will still be remembered come December.
I think it will. I think, like, what else is there? There's maybe God of War Ragnarok. I'm not even convinced that's coming out this year, but that's probably the biggest contender that I think could challenge it. If From Software is smart, they do DLC or something to kind of keep it in your brains. But I don't want to say it's my game of the year, but it basically is right now, and I don't see that changing. And the fact that I've gone and downloaded or bought like all of From Software's back catalog, and I'm going to be playing that through the entirety of the year, like it's really hard for me personally to forget why I'm doing that and why Elden Ring made such an impact on me, and why, like, in my mind, like that's why it wins right now. So like, and what else is there? Like, there's a lot of really good games, but like they're all like really good, okay games, like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and like what else has come out? There's all these games. They're just like, they're good, but they're not like, I don't want to talk about it with people. And I'll talk about Elden Ring with whoever wants to listen.
Less competition than usual, but quite often the heavy hitters are announced in the middle of the year and they come out at the end of the year. Like, there's still probably some stuff we don't know. Of what we do know, the only competition was going to be Breath of the Wild 2, which is delayed, so that's out of the picture.
Yeah.
And maybe Starfield.
Well, I was thinking Starfield, but is it out too late in the context of like for Survivor's Game Awards? For Survivor's Game of the Year, we do Game Awards voting because it's just easier to get everything out done.
This would be Starfield's out like the week before that closes.
Well, it's not going to rate because people won't have played it to the extent that they've played. Like not that Call of Duty's ever like a contender, but like they come out so late and you have so little time to like actually play it that it can't make that impression upon you that Elden Ring has.
But on the other hand, it because it's just happened, if you've remembering that a lot of people who vote in this will have got it early, let's say they get it 3 weeks before it releases, that means they've had about a month before the noms are due. I think it's so fresh in their mind that it like jumps to the front, and that's often what happens. But I will say that being a Bethesda game, and it's really up to them to prove us wrong, historically their games launch in a terrible position. Like they're just not ready, full of bugs. They've got a reputation for that, and on them to not do that this time, but let's assume that they will until they don't, because they haven't really done that before. They've never released a game that's in a good position, relatively bug-free at launch. It's normally great like 6 months later.
Yeah. Well, I always like Bethesda games. Like, I shouldn't say that. Bethesda Game Studios games, like the Fallouts and like they're buggy, but they're kind of like fun bugs, like that you don't seem to mind as much. They're not game-breaking bugs necessarily. And like, I love Fallout. I don't like the Elder Scrolls so much. I'm not a fantasy person, says the guy who's like enamored with Elden Ring. But I like sci-fi very much, and I like the exploration. And so like Starfield Ragnarok, if Starfield comes out, like who knows if they're both coming out or not, are probably the two biggest contenders to Elden Ring. But I also need to remember how much Elden Ring has like completely enveloped my life. This is a note to me in the future. Remember this.
I think if we had this discussion every April for the past 15 years, we would often be saying something that's just come out is a clear contender, and for now, like I can't see anything beating it, and then it got beaten. But it does feel different with Elden Ring. I think Breath of the Wild's the last time something's released so early in the year. And at the time, Horizon felt good, but then just got totally dominated like a week later by something way better, in my opinion.
Well, and it's also just that pandemic year of like a lot of the stuff that came out now was supposed to be out last year, and a lot of the stuff that's supposed to be out now is probably going to be pushed out because we've had to adapt to new ways of working. Things are just coming out unless you're a Nintendo game and it's coming out early. It's just a mess. So who knows? Elden Ring can thank COVID maybe for its huge success. Let's finish off today with the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Do you even want to try to describe it, Ben? Sonic Origins. Go for it.
Sonic, well, the game itself is not that dumb, but it kind of is. Like, it's when this got announced, so it's just like a repackaging of Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and Sonic CD, which are the games that Sega has released over and over and over again. You've probably played them on Wii and DS and like everything. I'm pretty sure I've got them on Xbox. I don't know if they're 360 or Xbox One or something, but they're there in some form. They're finally doing something different. They're actually going to slightly remaster them. So previously they've just been emulated. This time it sounds like they're actually ported over, and they are essentially, well, they're kind of remastering it. They're basically making them widescreen and removing the lives, or you can play them as intended, as you already have done back in 2007 on the Wii Virtual Console in 4x3. So,
or on your Sega Genesis Mini or Sega Mega Drive Mini or whatever it's called here. Yeah, you own these games tenfold. Anyway.
A million times. Now, for that, they want $60 or like $68, depending on which version you get. And yet there are still somehow 5 versions. And they all have different things. There's no way to, even the deluxe version doesn't have everything in it. Somehow these games came out in the 90s and they've added a bunch of DLC, which you need to like lock things behind DLC.
Or like character animations in the menu. Like you have to buy that. Like what?
One, I think this is way overpriced considering you've already bought these games and they're so old, and it's not like they've remade them. If they went and they did like, you know what, let's do like a new Super Mario style, like we're actually going to remake these 2.5D, fair enough. It's minimal remastering, letting them, upscale and be in widescreen. Like I'm pretty sure you probably get a mod for that for free on the PC version. So I think maybe like $30 Australian would have been a fair price. 60 is way too much. And then they've got all these different versions, which confuses it. They've somehow ruined it with DLC. It's like, what are you doing, Sega? And like when they announced it, I kind of thought this was already out, right? Like it's not a new thing. It's not like they've said, hey, here's those bunch of Sonic games that we've never re-released being re-released. It's the ones that we keep re-releasing, the good ones that you remember from your childhood, and they're minimally touched up. Like I don't get it.
Well, and like, so we had like a text-based explanation of what was going on, and I'm like, I think I get it. And I was talking to you about it, and you're like, nah, just Vooks put up like a graph that they have on their website. And I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, well, that's clear, but it's also just like a extremely good representation of like what is going on with this. It's just piecemeal weird things. Like if you really want to play these games in widescreen and stuff, just buy the base version of the game. You don't need all the weird bells and whistles that they're going to charge you between like $20 and $30 extra to get. That's just insane.
And you've already played all these. Like I don't see it selling super well. Maybe when it's like on sale 80% off, which I suspect will happen in about 6 months. Get it.
Well, there you go. That comes out in sometime this year. June, I think.
May or June, something like that.
Not a fact-based show. We did like a solid hour talking about Elden Ring, basically. Yay! If you're enjoying it, let us know. Also, because our 200th, not our 100th, our 200th episode is coming up. If you want to send through some words of congratulations, or you want to record yourself, send words or a recording to, I don't know, we'll call it podcast@stevivor.com with whatever you want to say, and we may play or read out your wishes on the show. Maybe we'll see if we can get some people on to talk nice things, or we'll get recordings or something. I don't know. I literally haven't thought about the 200th episode, and I guess we should, because we've got 3 more to go.
Yeah, we should do a good one. That's it.
Oh, but they're all good, Ben. Mostly.
Oh, we should do it as celebration.
Exactly.
Let's get some of our greatest hits going.
And I'll record it this time. how do we find you on the internet?
Ben_Salsa on Twitter. That's me.
Nice. I'm SWrightAU, and you can read all of our stuff on Stevivor or go to our social media and we'll complain about Sonic Origins editions. It'll be great.
It's not even worth complaining about.
Fair enough. Have a good rest of isolation, Ben.
Thank you. I'll enjoy.